Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another, the MGA Rules on Tap. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened. I don't know why the music isn't playing. It was working last week. It worked for my practice, and now it's not. So we shall go forth. And what the music you were supposed to have heard was the soundtrack to the main theme to the greatest game ever played. Uh, Unfortunately, if you haven't ever heard it, or even if you have and you were looking forward to it, when this is over, I would tell you to Google it and you will listen to it. I don't know why. So I thought was all smart last week and now I'm not. So anyhow, this is episode 2. We're going to be talking about rule 2, which is the 5 parts to the golf course, but then we're also going to expand and actually get into the rules associated with those. So we're going to be having a very, very busy night. Who am I? I'm Doug Hoffman. I'm the Director of Rules and Competitions. I'll be your host through this evening. And I'm the director, like I said, director of rules and competitions for the Minnesota Golf Association, a PGA Master Professional, and a certified expert on the rules according to the USGA. So we've already talked about that. So this is the slide I always used, and I didn't have a chance to update it, so I apologize. But all of you are not seeing this slide, but I'm going to talk about how you can participate. In the lower left-hand corner of your screen, you will see a hand, and it says React. And if you click on that button, you'll have an opportunity to raise a hand or do other things like that. So you can have thumbs up, thumbs down. Hopefully nobody gives me a thumbs down except for the fact that you haven't heard the music. A wave, a heart. I always like hearts. And then a silly face. But anyhow, so it looks like some of you are testing that. That's good. The one thing that I also have noticed is not here, and I'm looking because I actually sign up and I've got a screen to my right. That's why you see me looking over because I want to see what you're seeing. And this is a new screen for GoToWebinar. So last week it was kind of sort of unveiled, and I'm not finding a place where we can submit questions, which is kind of annoying to me. I guess there's a chat function. You could send me a chat. So we'll have a chance to do that. The chat feature is the top right-hand corner, the 5th icon in, or 4th to the left of the 3 dots. So that'll give you an idea where you can find it. So as we talk, this is week 2, the 5 parts to the course. You'll see what we have coming up, and you can plan your schedules accordingly and know when to join me, or know maybe when to go play golf or something like that. So if you weren't here last week, I have set that I have 2 goals for this show. I want to make sure that you guys enjoy yourself, that you have fun, and that you learn something new. So this is how you're going to use the chat function. I would like you to send me a chat and let me know what you may have learned new last week. And so I need to go ahead and see where that is and find it on mine. Okay, hang on one second. There we go. Oh, I do have questions. Somehow, oh, the Jim Longpray, thank you. 3 of you. There's the Q function. Okay, wait a minute. Oh, I see. Questions. Never mind. It's the screen with the question mark in the middle of it. Silly me. Anyhow, that's how you're going to ask a question, or you can go ahead and send me a chat. But I'd like to know from those of you who listened last week, what was the one thing that stood out to you that you learned that you never knew existed? So you can go ahead and send me the answer to that question through the question function, or you can send me a chat. Let me see if I have any chats going there. Nope, nothing yet. Maybe you never learned anything new last week. That wouldn't be good, would it? No. Oh, the Jordan Spieth rule. Well, that's good. Yep. And that's where you have up to 15 minutes to return or be able to not return your scorecard, but allow 15 minutes for a player to come back into scoring. And that is a model local rule, so it's not a rule that's in effect at all time. And so there we go. Thank you, Connie. New definitions. And while you're doing this, I'm going to go ahead and share the poll, I think, when I can find it. Oh, there we go. There's the poll. So here's our poll for the night, which is, you know what it is. What beverage are you enjoying with you tonight? So while you guys are answering, I actually have two beverages. It is still cold in Minnesota, although it's warmed up. It was actually on the positive side of the zero equation today. So we're always good there. But I have coffee and some sweet creamer in it. But I have in my, and that of course is in my official Masters mug. And in this, I have a shot glass. You can't see it very well, but it's from the 2016 Ryder Cup. And this has some homemade Bailey Irish cream that I make every Christmas time. So it's really good. So cheers to those of you who are joining me. And let's see. Oh, this is good. So sorry. Okay, Warren Hirsch. Sorry, there's a blurry video feed. I don't know if you want to maybe. Mine seems to be working okay. Feel free to log out and log back in. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, Jimmy Wong learned that I have global reach continuing all the way to Spain. And I do have to acknowledge Alberto, who's joining us again tonight. So, Alberto, thank you for being here. And good questions. So, it's always good to know what you guys are learning and how you're benefiting, because that's really important to me. All right. So, we're going to end this poll. We're going to share the results. So soda juice, well, I guess I didn't vote, but I'm in the coffee as well as the cocktail categories. So I'm double fisting it, I guess, as the case might be. All right, so now let's see, we're going to go back to sharing the screen. There we go. All right, so now we're of course, going to be talking about the rules of golf. We're going to be talking about the 5 areas to the course. And then in simplistic terms, there are only 5, and these are the 5. Number 1 is the teeing area. Number 2 are bunkers, and those are all bunkers. Number 3 are the penalty areas, and those are all penalty areas. And number 4 is the putting green. So, but if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, I put what I call the 5 area hierarchy. And these are important to understand what is considered the most important, what's considered the least important when we start getting into a situation where when we have a ball actually at rest and touching 2 different categories or 2 different areas. So penalty areas are the highest ranking, followed by bunkers, the putting green, the teeing area, and then last but not least. And notice in that image, we only have numbers 1 through 4. What isn't marked is everything else, and everything else is what's called the general area. So let's jump into these, and we're going to be starting with the teeing area because that was listed as number 1. The teeing area is actually rule 6.2. So as we saw, that's going to be number 1 on this image that it's circled there. All right, so first we're going to start with definition. We talked about all the definitions last week, but you're going to see these definitions that we talked about last week coming into play, if you pardon the pun, this week with regards to the rules themselves. And the rules will set up that they will have the definitions there. And we're going to be covering the definitions as they appeal and apply to each individual area that we're talking about. So what is the teeing area? Well, the teeing area is the area the player must play from in starting the hole that they are playing. So this particular area you see here is that rectangular box. And you're going to understand that rectangular box in a second, but that is the teeing area for the hole this player is starting. It could be number 1, it could be number 18. So let's keep going with this. And most of you probably know this, but you should know that the teeing area is a rectangle. So it is a specific geometric shape. It's a rectangle, 4 90-degree angles, and it's 2 club lengths in deep. And remember, a club length is the longest club that we have in starting our round. So here we go. We have the definition to a club length. The length of the longest club of the 14 or fewer clubs that the player has during the round, other than a putter. And I mentioned this last week, and I did get confirmation from the USGA that a club length must be of conforming length. So if you have maybe an 83-inch driver that you specifically put in there for measuring your relief areas, then you're not going to be able to use that area because you can get outside of the 48-inch maximum length that you're allowed. So if you were to drop a ball and that ball were to either hit the ground or come to rest outside of that 48 inches, the first 48 inches of that 83-inch driver, then you're going to be incurring a penalty because you will have dropped in a wrong place. All right, so continuing on with this definition of teeing area, it is defined by the front and the outside edges of these tee markers. So you can see whether these black tee markers are balls, whether they are discs on the ground, no matter what they are, or just imagine what they might be. You know, if you think about Augusta, those tee markers are really more stick-looking tee markers. So it's the front edge, the forwardmost points of the 2 tee markers, and the side edges are the outside edges. And it goes back. That front edge sets the beginning of that 2 club lengths. It is, of course, one of the 5 areas. But what about all the other teeing locations? They are not termed teeing areas. Old terminology could be teeing ground, whatever, but the teeing area there is only one. So when you look at the term teeing area, actually it will be referred to as the teeing area because it is the teeing area relevant to that player playing that particular hole. Now, it could be you and I are playing different teeing areas. Okay, so my teeing area is not going to be your teeing area. So there will be 2 different teeing areas, but not for me. For me, there is only one. For you, there is only one. And your teeing area for me is just going to be part of the general area. So all of these other teeing areas are not to be included, and they are part of that general area. All right, so now we're going to play a ball from within the teeing area, and these are all the rules that we're going to look at quickly. Many of them you know, so I'm not going to necessarily spend a whole lot of time talking about them, but these are the things that we need to keep in mind, all within Rule 6.2b. First of all, the teeing area rules in 6.2b apply whenever a player is either required or allowed to play a ball from the teeing area. What does that mean? Required, we are required to play a ball from the teeing area when starting play of a hole. We are allowed to play a ball from the teeing area if we are proceeding, maybe we choose the stroke and distance option under an unplayable ball, or for, excuse me, a ball going into a penalty area. So that allows us to use the teeing area. It includes when the player is starting play of the hole, as well as when a player is going to play again. So this player has hit this great big cut slice off into the woods on the right. Player declares the ball unplayable, goes down, finds it. No option is available, is good other than going back under stroke and distance. And so that's what we're looking at here. But we also have another situation that's relatively new with these new rules, and that is if the player's ball after the first stroke that was made to start the hole, if that ball at any point in time comes back into that rectangular box, the teeing area, then that player is going to still be able to proceed accordingly. So looking at this, the player's ball is in play. So here we have a player who swings and misses at the golf ball. That the player has made a stroke, so that ball is in play. He's made a stroke with intent to strike the ball, the forward movement. All right. So, or if the player has taken relief, as we've already mentioned. So the player drops the ball back on the line and drops it back into the teeing area. And we can do that. If we want to go back on the line and use the back on the line relief and drop the ball, we can do that and go ahead and drop it into the teeing area. But it only refers to the teeing area that what we're talking about in starting play of the hole, and not to any others. So if we have that ball on that teeing area, that means we can use any of these rules that will apply to a ball being a teeing area, whether it's starting play or if it hits a tree and comes back to the teeing area. We know that when we are starting play of a hole, we can tee up the ball. And then that ball is in the teeing area as long as any part of that ball is either touching or is above any part of the teeing area. So when you look at this box on the screen, the green check marks mean that those balls are all good, whether it be the front, the left side, or the back edge, that those balls all touch the teeing area, whether it be actually on the ground touching it or overhanging it by virtue of being on a tee. Whereas the three red circles with the white X's, those aren't good. We know a player can stand outside the teeing area when making a stroke. We know that the ball may be teed, or that we can play a ball from the ground. So these are all versions of different tees. Certainly the one on the left is our more traditional tee. The ones on the right, we maybe have stolen from the local driving range, and we want to use those. Those are perfectly legitimate tees. But what actually is a tee? We actually have a definition for a tee, and that is an object that is used to raise a ball above the ground to play it from the teeing area, cannot be longer than 4 inches in length, and it must conform with the equipment rules. Once again, these four images that we see are all tees that conform with the equipment rules. They are objects that are used to raise the ball above the ground. And that tee can either be placed in the ground or on the ground. So here we have the image on the left, traditional, we place the tee into the ground. We can have the image on the center, those three driving range tees that we just simply place on the ground. Or we could put our ball onto this pile of sand that was created by that little device above it, and that would suffice as well, because we're placing our ball on the ground, because that sand would constitute the ground in this regard. And of course, we can place it on the ground itself. That top picture is what Laura Davies likes to do when hitting a driver. The bottom picture is what something you or I may do on a par 3 hole. And as we mentioned, here we have, last week we talked about internal definition. So here's our first example to see an internal definition. Internal definition, the word ground, for the purpose of this rule, the ground includes sand or other natural materials put in place to set the tee or the ball on. So looking at that bottom picture, bottom left picture, you might say, well, wait a minute. We've created this huge mound, and now I have a 4-inch tee, and I'm going to put the tee in that mound. Is that legal? And the answer is yes. The limitation is for the tee itself. But keep in mind, you have a time limit with regards to pace of play. So don't get the idea that you're going to be creating this little mini volcano every hole and you're going to put your tee in it. But we do, if we have conforming tees, then guess what? We're going to have non-conforming tees. So you can see these images on this picture where the image on the left has a little piece that swings out that can show us the direction we want to hit it, or the image on the right is a peculiar tee that supposedly will take spin off the ball and make it go further, which of course is what we always want to do. We want to make the ball go further. If we hit a ball off of a non-conforming tee, and a non-conforming tee can not only take the form of a tee with some things attached to it, but it can also take other forms of other things, such as a Diet Coke can. So here we have John Daly. We don't have the video, but him getting ready to hit a ball off of a top of a Diet Coke can. And if we had the video, he'd hit the shot and then pick up the Diet Coke can and take a swig of Diet Coke. So the player must not make a stroke at a ball teed in a way not allowed by this rule. And the penalty for that is the general penalty for the first time, and it's going to be a hot fudge sundae stop at DQ on the way out of town for the second time. Once we're on the teeing ground, though, we can do, unlike other parts of the golf course, there are certain things that we can do to improve the conditions on the teeing area or around a golf ball. And before making a stroke, we can take these actions. Notice it says in the teeing area, and to improve the conditions affecting the stroke. But I want you to really stress on the word in, because in this particular case, we aren't talking about any area other than the teeing area itself. So what can we do? Well, we can alter the surface of the ground. Many of us have done this before. And once again, this is Laura Davies. We can step down behind our ball. We've all likely done that, but we can move, bend, or break grass, weeds, or other natural objects that are attached or growing in the ground, but once again, in the teeing area. So if there is a particular spot that we want to place our ball on top of, and there's a weed right behind it, we can go ahead and pluck that weed out as long as that weed is growing in the teeing area. However, if that weed is off the teeing area, not on the teeing area, or if we have a branch interfering with our swing and we break it off, we're now going to be in violation. We can remove or press down sand, soil, loose area, things like that. We know we can do that. And lastly, this is kind of unique, and understand that this is the only place you can do these things. You can remove dew, frost, or and water in the teeing area. So maybe there's been a rain shower go through and there's some temporary water on the teeing area at the spot where you want to play. You can actually go down and use your towel and get rid of that water as long as it's in the teeing area. But as I mentioned, a player is going to incur the general penalty if they take any other actions to improve the conditions affecting the stroke under Rule 8.1a. Again, that's removing something fixed or growing off of the teeing area, such as a weed, or breaking off a branch that might be interfering with your swing. Okay, now the teeing area are going to have tee markers. We've already referenced them. I love these tee markers in this picture. What better way to know which direction you're supposed to hit it? But the location of the tee markers, first and foremost, is set by the committee to define each teeing area. So these are fixed objects, and they should remain in that same location for all players. There may be some instances where they are allowed to be removed. We talk about temporary water. There might be a slight adjustment to them, things like that. But tee markers, we don't want to be moving them. If the player improves the condition affecting the stroke by moving any of these tee markers before making a stroke from the teeing area, they get the general penalty. So the question is going to be, why are they doing it? If they're doing it because they want to stand where that tee marker is, so they move the tee marker so they can take their stance, they are going to be penalized. So here we have a clarification. The tee marker is moved without improvement. If a player causes a tee marker to move, such as by tripping over it, hitting it in anger, or lifting it for no apparent reason, but that does not improve the conditions affecting the stroke, then there's no penalty. We're okay. Somebody can be clumsy and inadvertently kick it. We're okay. The intent is not to improve the conditions affecting the stroke. And so that's even if the player fails to replace it before playing from the teeing area. But because moving tee markers can have a significant effect on the competition, they should not be moved. And if they are, they should be replaced. So here we go. If a player moves the tee marker because they think it should be in a different position, maybe I think the tee marker, the angle that they're having me hit, that rectangle is not pointing at my landing area that I think should be true. So I think that I need to reposition one of the tee markers. If I do that, or I deliberately destroy the tee marker, a committee may choose to disqualify the player for serious misconduct contrary to the spirit of the game. Now, I have fined players who have destroyed tee markers, and I'll charge them the cost of the tee marker, which is basically about $50. And so if I find out who it is who has destroyed my tee marker, then they will be receiving an invoice. And third, if the player finds one or both tee markers missing, the player should seek help from the committee. But if the committee is not immediately available, the player should use their reasonable judgment. We talked about this last week when we looked at the definition. Reasonable judgment to estimate the location of the teeing area. I know when I go and set up a golf course, I will actually dot where I want the tee markers to go. And I won't dot just one, I will dot both of them. Because that way, if the tee markers happen to disappear, maybe somebody comes onto the golf course overnight and steals them, or maybe they forget to be put out. By having the dots on the ground, then the players can look at the dots and they know from where they're supposed to be playing. The other thing for me is I go ahead and I'm telling the maintenance staff exactly how I want the tee markers to be aligned. And hopefully they put them there rather than I've had the experience of maintenance staff not always getting it lined up the way I want to. So it gives me an opportunity to make sure that they're lined up properly. In all other situations, tee markers are treated as regular movable obstructions that may be removed as allowed under 15.2. So what does this mean? I'm playing an adjoining hole and I hit my shot back up on the teeing area from the previous hole. And now I have interference from that tee marker. So I can reach down and pick up that USGA tee marker and set it aside and go ahead and play my shot. Why is that? Because that is not the teeing area for me. It is some other, it's just part of the general area. And because it's the general area, these are movable obstructions. When we're playing from a teeing area, the ball is not in play, whether it's from the ground or from the tee. It's not in play until the player makes a stroke at it, and the ball may be lifted or moved without penalty before the stroke is made. So let's look at this again. Whether the ball is teed or on the ground, when starting a hole or playing again from the teeing area. What is playing again from the teeing area? Again, there are two possibilities. Either I'm proceeding under stroke and distance, or my ball's hit, maybe I've swung and missed, maybe I've topped it and it's gone 6 inches but stayed within the teeing area. It doesn't matter. As long as my ball is in the teeing area, I now may lift and move it and relocate it to some other position without penalty. This way back when used to be a 2-stroke penalty. Then they modified it to a 1-stroke penalty. Now there is no penalty. So if I swing and miss, and I think it's because I've teed it up obviously in the wrong spot, I can go ahead and move it to some other location within the teeing area, and I will only be playing my 2nd stroke at that point in time. Certainly, if a ball falls off a tee, whether I knock it off, whether it falls off on its own, if I'm not making a stroke, I can go ahead and re-tee it. I can change its position. All of those things, it's not how many of us have ever said somebody bumps it off? Oh, that's one. Nope, that's not one, of course. And then the player can go ahead and re-tee it and go someplace else in that teeing area. However, if a player makes a stroke at a ball that's either falling off or has already fallen off, no penalty, and the stroke counts and the ball's in play. So this player, the ball falls off while he's making a stroke. He completely misses the golf ball. The stroke counts. And so now that ball's in play. Well, if that ball's still in the teeing area, he can pick it up and go someplace else with it. However, if he's one of these people that likes to tee it up right at the front edge of the teeing area, and it falls off and goes outside of the teeing area, then he's going to have to play it from the ground. This is a great reason why you don't tee up right at the tee markers. Give yourself 6-12 inches. You never know when you might swing or miss or top it and it goes 3 inches. Okay, when the ball in play lies in the teeing area, we've already referenced this. If the ball in play is in the teeing area, whether it be after a stroke or after taking relief, the player is going to have all of those rights and privileges available. They're going to be able to lift and move the ball without penalty, or they're simply going to be able to play the ball. I mean, if I swing and miss and maybe the wind causes my ball to, to fall off the tee, then I can go ahead and play from there as shown in that bottom picture. So when a ball lies in the teeing area, if I play a ball from a wrong place, I'm going to incur the general penalty under 14.7a. That might be maybe a teeing area. Well, let's say if I put my ball on top of a tee marker, that's not going to suffice. I'm going to get a general penalty. Number one, the tee marker is not an object designed to raise the ball off the ground. Okay, that's the teeing area. That's rule 6.2b. Excuse me. Okay, now we're going to talk about the putting green. Putting green is number 4 on this image. And remember, it's number 2 in number 2 is bunkers. Number 3 in our priority list. So we have penalty areas, we have bunkers, then we have the putting green and the teeing area. So the putting green, rule 13, very specific part of the golf course. All of us know what it is. Here is the outline of rule 13. First and foremost, what is it? What is the definition of a putting green? Well, number one, it's an area that's especially prepared for putting, and or excuse me, an area that the committee has defined as the putting green. It could be a temporary green if maybe the real putting green is under repair. The putting green for a hole contains the hole and into which the player is trying to play the ball. So the putting green is our um, hallowed ground, if you will. That's where we're trying to get to so we can eventually get the ball into the hole. But any other putting green, be it a putting green on the golf course or a putting green, maybe in a practice area, practice putting green, bunker green, whatever, putting green for all other holes are wrong greens and part of the general area. So here we can see that all the putting greens at the end of the red arrows, even though they are putting greens, they are the wrong putting green. And because they are not the putting green, they are part of the general area. What defines the putting green? Well, it's the edge. It could be defined where it can be seen that the specially prepared area starts. So somewhat hard to see in this image, but you can still see that there is an edge from the putting green on the left and from the collar on the right. And unless the committee defines the edge in a different way, we may have a situation where we have, and I experienced this last year in one of our competitions, we had a putting green that had a bad area. It was actually an area of ground under repair with new sod. And so they didn't want people standing in the new sod areas. So we said that was ground under repair and mandatory relief. But that also extended off the putting green. So what we had to do is we actually would use dots, and we did a series of dots connecting the where you could see the collar. And so if the area was off the putting green, then the player would be entitled to relief if the ball was in the ground under repair. However, because it was off the putting green, they would be dropping it, as opposed to if a ball was in the ground under repair on the putting green, they would be placing it. So it's important to sometimes to use other means by which to define an edge. Or it could be that the collar is so tight, maybe they've had a very dry summer and the collar is so tight that you can't really even identify what is the putting green and what isn't. And so you might want to put a series of dots to identify it. If we have double greens, of course, this hole, what you see down here in this image is the double green at the old course at St. Andrews, the 2nd and the 16th greens. The road course old course hotel is to your left. So that double green, it all depends what the committee decides to do. It's if they don't do anything, it's the entire prepared area that contains both holes. So if somebody happens to hit a big roping duck hook while playing the second green and ends up over on the top side by looking at the picture to the right when you play hole 16, that is the putting green. It's all one and the same. However, the committee may choose to delineate the breaking point. So here we have a dotted line that the committee is going to, maybe they physically put dots on the green, maybe they put dots on each side on the collar. And so the line between the dots is going to serve as the margin or the edge of the putting green. And so here we have an indication of what is the second green and what's the 6th green. And again, a wrong green, and this is important to know because we can't play from a wrong green. The rules do not allow us to play from a wrong green. So what do we do? The wrong green on the course, other than the putting green, that's going to be considered an abnormal course condition from which we're going to be required to take relief. But wrong green also includes not just the putting greens for the other holes, but it could be the actual putting green if a temporary green is in play for that particular hole. It's going to include those putting, practice chipping greens, anything like that. We're going to have a hole on the putting green. This is where we're trying to get the ball to come to rest. Notice the hole must be at least 4¼ inches in diameter and must be at least 4 inches deep. Now, if you see this collar on it, the hole liner, it's going to, the outer limit of that hole liner is going to be that 4¼ inches. And it says it must be sunk at least 1 inch below the putting green surface. And I'm glad they put this in here, unless the nature of the soil requires that it be closer to the surface. Having grown up and officiated and conducted golf tournaments down in Texas, I've had my share of golf courses that the greens were quite firm, and to be able to cut a hole that got that liner deep enough can sometimes be problematic. But the reason we want to cut it at least a hole deep is and there was a situation on this on the PGA Tour where a ball actually hits the hole liner and comes back out, and that's just, if you will, rub of the green, and there's no recourse for the player in that particular scenario. But what is the hole when it's not in italics? Remember, a word italicized means it has a definition. Well, we also have the word hole being used when it's not italics, not italicized. So what does this mean? It's used throughout the rules to mean a part of the course associated with a particular teeing area, putting green, and the hole. So the fifth hole is not an italicized word hole, whereas the hole in the putting green on the fifth hole is going to be italicized. Play of a hole begins at the teeing area and ends in the putting green, and the hole in the putting green, unless of course it's match play, in which case we might have something else to say about that. Okay, so now what are we allowed to do when the ball is on the putting green? We know we can mark and lift it. So these are the normal things that normally not allowed to do. We can mark, lift, clean, and replace the ball. We can repair damage to the putting green, not to the golf ball. And we can remove sand and loose soil. Sand and loose soil are not loose impediments. We cannot move those except for on the putting green only. There's no penalty if we accidentally cause the ball or ball marker to move. We know if we're on the teeing area and we cause it to move accidentally, no penalty. If we're on the putting green and cause it to move, no penalty. But anywhere else, if we cause it to move, then there will be a penalty, unless there's some other rule that's going to get us off the hook. Now remember, okay, so here we have the first example of this hierarchy that we want to keep in mind. A ball is on the putting green when any of the ball touches the putting green or lies in or on anything that is inside the edge of the putting green. What is that on anything? It could be lying on a towel. It could be lying on a piece of paper or a cup. It's not actually physically touching the putting green. However, if it's lying in or on that object and that ball would normally otherwise be within the confines, the constraints within the edge of the putting green, then it's going to be on the putting green. However, and this is that hierarchy, what we're talking about, if part of the ball is both on the putting green and touching another part of the course. So here we have a ball touching the putting green, but it's also touching the general area. It's touching the collar. Where is the golf ball? We need to be able to identify where the golf ball is, because the player is going to have certain rights and privileges if the ball is on the putting green. So remember what we said. So in their hierarchy, the putting green, everything is above the general area. So if a ball touches any other part of the course and the general area, it will always be in that special part of the course. Okay, a ball that's on the putting green, we know we can lift it and we can clean it. However, the ball must be marked before it's lifted under Rule 14, and it's going to be required to be replaced under 14.2. We know that already. What are the additional things we can do? Well, we can improve the surface of the putting green. We can remove sand, soil. Again, sand and loose soil are not loose impediments, but they may be removed on the putting green only without penalty. How can we do that? How can we repair damage? To go back and how can we repair sand? We can use our hand, we can use our hat, we can use our club, we can use a leaf blower, we can use whatever we want to get rid of it. What about the damage? How can we repair damage? Well, we can repair damage. Of course, we could do it without penalty as long as we take reasonable actions to restore the putting green as nearly as possible to its original condition. And that's why the rules were changed to allow this. So if I happen to play, have the 7:30 starting time and I have totally pristine greens, and you come along and you've got the 1:45 tee time, and you've already had 100 players go through and play that, chances are the putting green's going to get beaten up a little bit in between me and you. So why is it that you should suffer because you happen to be the have the 1:45 starting time? So the rules were changed to try to allow you to repair this damage so that you could have the same conditions as nearly as possible as what I had. What can we use? We can, by using our hand, we can use our foot, another part of our body. We can use a normal ball mark repair tool, a tee, a club, or similar item of normal equipment. And we must do so without unreasonably delaying play. If you're going to go back to the golf course or the clubhouse and get your leaf blower out for whatever reason, or a special tool that fixes ball marks, you're not going to be able to do that. So it's all going to be within a reasonable time frame. Certainly, we've seen tour players seemingly fix things that take forever and ever. But again, they have that right. But if the player improves the putting green by taking actions beyond or what exceeds what is reasonable, or to restore the putting green to its original condition, then you're going to get the general penalty. So what are some things of damage? Let's actually define damage. Damage on the putting green means any damage that's caused by any person, including you, the player, or any outside influence. So looking at these pictures, we have a referee sitting on a golf cart. Maybe the referee damaged it. Maybe he drove over the green with his golf cart. We have an elk here walking across the green. Chances are there's some hoof prints there. So these are the things that we can repair. And here's our list. We can repair ball marks, shoe damage, including spike marks, scrapes, which is even more annoying than shoe damage or spike marks when people scrape their feet, indentations caused by maybe equipment, somebody reaching down, leaning on their putter to get the ball out of the hole, or maybe the flag stick. Old hole plugs we can fix, turf plugs, seams of cut turf, we can do all those. Here's some scrapes or indentations from maintenance vehicles or maintenance tools. We can fix those. And certainly the animal tracks, hoof indentations, things like that. And embedded. Now, obviously, this picture we aren't going to be able to play golf anytime soon because we have a whole bunch of hailstones that need to melt. But we can also repair those indentions that were created by the hailstorms. But what can't we include? This is almost more important what we can include. We cannot improve aeration holes. And people say, well, gee, that's a hole made by a greenskeeper. The reason they don't do this is because they are so widespread. There is going to be a clarification that will allow the player relief if the ball happens to come to rest within an aeration hole. However, because they are so close together, we are not going to declare one aeration hole an area of ground under repair, or each hole an area of ground under repair, because chances are you're going to have to stand on them. So we don't want to do that. So, but if the ball's in the hole, you're going to get relief. But in this particular case, it's going to be for the lie of the ball or area of intended swing only. It is not going to apply to the stance. If we have an irrigation head go off and you have all of this stuff. And you have water standing on the green, or you have rain or other natural forces. Or if you have natural surface imperfections, that you just have a bad green, you're not going to be entitled to repair that. That's not damage that you can repair. And certainly now with the flagstick being left in the hole, we have some people getting the ball out of the hole that their hands are really big. So a little bit harder to get out of the hole and may damage the hole. There are two specific rules for a ball or ball marker that moves on the putting green. There's no penalty if it accidentally causes the ball to move. We've already talked about that. If we inadvertently kick it, if we bump it with our putter, I unfortunately am sometimes a little bit jittery when it comes to putting, and so I want to set my putter down behind the ball. So a few times in my life, I've inadvertently tapped the ball and rolled it. And so there were times that I would get penalty. Well, thankfully now I'm not penalized for doing something like that. So all I'm going to do is replace the ball on its original spot, or I can put a ball marker down and to identify that spot and then put the ball back down. It may be if I'm worried about getting it lined up that I want to go ahead and put a ball marker down. And then by having the ball marker on the ground, then I'm going to be able to replace my ball and orient it without having, as long as I keep the ball marker on the ground. However, there's an exception, of course. Ball must be played as it lies when the ball begins to move either during the backswing or actually the stroke itself and the stroke is made. We're not going to talk about somebody who stops the stroke. We're going to talk about something where the stroke is made while we're doing this. So hopefully, let's see if this video actually, okay, takes it back. We can see the ball roll forward and the player continues with the stroke and goes ahead and hits it. In this particular case, as long as it's known that the player has not intentionally caused the ball to move, not accidentally, but player hasn't intentionally caused the ball to move, and then goes ahead and makes a stroke. As long as it's accidental, the stroke counts and the ball's played where it comes to rest. And there's no penalty to the player or the opponent if they deliberately lift the player's ball on the putting or ball marker on the putting green. This is for accidentally causing it. However, we're going to look at Rule 9.4 or 9.5 to find out if there's a penalty. There could very well be a penalty, and we'll talk about those when we get to looking at those rules. So what happens if we have a ball that's moved by natural forces? So we could have wind cause the ball to move on the putting green. We could have gravity. So if natural forces causes the player's ball to move on the putting green, then where the player must play from next depends upon the situation that actually happened. If the player had already lifted the ball and replaced it, then the ball now owns that spot and the player is simply going to replace the ball on that spot, no penalty. It doesn't matter if the ball rolls down off the green into a penalty area or goes into the hole. Either way, there's no stroke. Player simply replaces the ball at the original spot. So here we have a ball must be replaced if it moves after placing a ball. So this is a situation where a player's ball is on the putting green and they have interference from abnormal course conditions. So ground under repair. Player decides to take free relief, and the nearest point of complete relief is going to be off of or in this particular case, it's on the putting green. Once you place that ball in that new spot, then it now owns that new spot. But if it happens to be off of the putting green, it's a different answer. So a player's ball is in temporary water on the putting green. They decide to take relief, and the nearest point of complete relief is actually off of the putting green. So, So we have let me go back here. I'm getting ahead of myself. Player's ball, temporary water, decide to take relief, place the ball on the spot, nearest point of complete relief. and while preparing to make the stroke, natural forces cause the ball to move, then the player is going to replace it. So now we're going to go to this is the situation where we have a totally different answer. If our nearest point of complete relief happens to be off of the putting green, and now the ball moves to natural forces at this point in time, we now are required to play it from its new spot as long as it doesn't go to a different part of the course. So my ball is at rest on the fringe. Natural forces take over between wind and gravity. My ball now moves. As long as it stays in the general area, if it rolls to a spot 50 yards away, I now have to play it from its new position. All right, so that's if a ball has been marked and lifted and now been placed or replaced back on the golf course. But what if the ball is now on the putting green and it hasn't been marked or lifted? The ball is going to be played from its new spot. So here we have that ball moved, so we're going to play it from its new spot. Once again, the player has not lifted the ball, and lifted is the key. Don't get hung up on this marking process, because a couple of years ago, Keegan Bradley did something. He marked his ball, and before he could pick it up, the wind blew it. Only a matter of a few inches, but the wind blew it. So he picked up the ball and put it back, cleaned it, and then when he replaced it in front of the marker. Well, he wasn't allowed to replace it, because even though he had put the ball marker on the putting green, he had not touched the ball. So when the wind moved it, he would have been required to play it from its new spot. And that mistake cost him 2 shots and several hundreds, thousands of dollars. Very expensive mistake. And that was just after this had gone into effect. So if you penalty for playing from a wrong place, like I explained with Keegan Bradley, this is a breach of Rule 13.1D, but the general penalty comes under 14.7A for having played from a wrong place. We know we're not allowed to deliberately test the green. So testing could be roughening it. So we saw in that the arrow in that lower picture where we use our putter to figure out which way the grain is going, or we have a player testing it by rolling a ball. So the player must not do anything deliberately to test the green. However, between the play of 2 holes, the player may either rub the surface or roll a ball on the putting green of the hole last completed and any practice putting green. Well, some people will say, well, why do they allow that? Well, because the conditions are on a totally unrelated putting green. So you're not putting on this practice putting green. You're not putting on practicing or testing the putting green of the hole just completed, because you've already completed it. Now, if you do it on the second green while you're waiting to hit your tee shot on the first hole, first hole is right next to the second green, and you go over and you rub the second green, now we're going to have a problem, because it's not a hole that was just completed and it's not any practice putting green. So again, here is the penalty statement. And committees do have the right to adopt a model local rule prohibiting a player from rolling ball, as well as practice putting on the putting green of the hole just completed. And we at the MGA do this, and we do it for pace of play reasons. USGA does not do it. Okay, the wrong putting green. I had referenced that you could not play from the wrong putting green. What do? We're going to actually talk about that later under the different rules. But if your ball comes to rest on the wrong putting green, you're going to be required to take relief. And it may even be, if you happen to stand on the wrong putting green, you're going to be required to take relief. It's mandatory. Okay, now we're going to get to the flag stick. What is the flag stick? Well, one thing the flag stick is not is a pin. A pin goes on diapers, a pin goes on hats, a pin goes on lapels, the pin does not go on the golf course. And so the flag stick is what we're talking about. So the purpose is to tell us, this rule is going to tell us what we can do with the flag stick. We know we can leave it in the hole. We know we can have it removed. However, we, the player, must decide before we make the stroke. And as it says, normally no penalty if a ball in motion hits the flag stick. So normally means that there may be circumstances where we could have a penalty. So let's look at this. This rule is going to apply to a ball played from anywhere on the golf course. It doesn't necessarily have to be from the putting green. So here we have a definition of the flag stick. What is a flag stick? It's a movable pole provided by the committee that is placed in the hole to show us where the hole is located. It includes the flag and any other material or objects attached to it. So we might have one of those balls that slide up and down on the flag stick to indicate whether the hole's at the front of the green or the back of the green, or we may have the infamous or the famous basket on the flag stick. It doesn't matter. We can use all of these things. It's the same stuff. When an artificial or natural object, such as a club or a stick, is used to in place of the flag stick, that object is going to be treated as if it is the flag stick for the purpose of applying the rules. And the requirements for a flag stick are stated in the equipment rules. Generally speaking, in the United States, a flag stick is going to be 7 to 8 feet. Excuse me, 7 to 8 feet long. Sometimes they can be longer if you have maybe a very high green or a very low green, just to low indicate. But if you go over to the British Isles, where it can be quite windy, often flag sticks are only 4 or 5 feet long because if they were any longer, they'd be broken by the wind. Okay, here are the different things we can do: leaving the flag stick in the hole, removing it, and then we're ball resting against it. Excuse me, we know that we can, that the player can leave the flag stick in the hole. We know that there's no penalty if a ball hits the flag stick that's left in the hole. We know there is a limitation on either moving or removing the flag stick while the ball is in motion, and then there's going to be a limitation on other people doing it as well. So real quickly, again, we know we putt, we leave the flag stick in the hole, ball hits the flag stick and doesn't go in. It's tough luck. Probably all of us have experienced this. I know I have. I prefer to leave the flag stick in the hole, especially for longer putts. So not a problem there. Again, we have to decide if we're going to have the flag stick left in or removed or attended before we make the stroke. The internal definition, flag stick left in the hole, means that it's going to be left in its normal position. So it's centered in the hole, and we're going to leave it there, or we can adjust it so that it's centered in the hole. We can't adjust it to where it's cockeyed in a particular direction. Or if a flag stick's been removed, we can have it put back. And as I just said, the player must not try to gain an advantage by deliberately putting the flag stick in some more advantageous position. If I do so, then I'm going to incur the general penalty if my ball were to strike the flag stick. This is an outcome-based rule. So no penalty if the ball hits the flag stick. We know that. With an exception. Of course, there's always exception. So here's a situation where a limitation on the player could also be player's caddy, player's partner, moving or removing the flag stick from the hole while the ball is in motion. So after making a stroke with the flag stick left in the hole, the player and the caddy, and it would also be true for the partner and partner's caddy, must not deliberately move or remove the flag stick to affect where the player's ball might come to rest. So here we have the player's caddy. Player is going to putt, and player's caddy is going to say, "Oh no, I think he's hit it too hard. It's going to hit this flag stick, and I better get the flag stick out." We can see that the location, this caddy is definitely not attending the flag stick. So here he goes over, and at that point in time when he removed the flag stick, we didn't know if the ball was going to strike the flag stick or not. So when they did that, that's going to result in a penalty. Gets the general penalty, and of course, even if it's the partner who does it, it's not the partner who gets the penalty; it's the player who's going to get the penalty. But there is an exception to this exception, if you will, and that is there's no penalty if it's obvious the ball has no chance of hitting the flag stick. So we're going to use reasonably believe. So the caddy sees the ball going well to the left, the player's left of the hole, and to save time, the caddy goes ahead and removes the flag stick. No problem there. But what about other players? Same condition is going to apply to other players, and by other players, I'm not meaning the caddy. I mean the partner. I'm talking about maybe another fellow competitor, as the old terminology used to be, another player, or it could even be the opponent. So when the player has left the flag stick in the hole and has not authorized anyone to attend the flag stick, and then another player must not deliberately remove it. If they do, so here we have the same situation. So another player removes the flag stick. What are we going to do? Well, then now that other player incurs the general penalty. Other player, again, stroke play, it's going to be 2 shots. Match play, if it's the opponent, it's going to lose the hole. With the same limitation, if there's no chance that the ball is going to hit the flag stick, then there's not going to be a penalty associated with it. But there's also not going to be a penalty if that person was not aware that the player was about to play or that that ball was already in motion. So, this player wasn't paying attention and just walks by and grabs the flag stick out of the hole, not knowing that Adam has already played, and here Blaine goes and walks by and just yanks the flag stick out of the hole. Of course, once again, the player may have the flag stick removed. Player's right to have the flag stick removed. 2 ways it can be done. So here we have 3 internal definitions. We have removed, attend, and authorized. And then what to do if the ball hits the flag stick or person attending the flag stick. And again, we have another internal definition. So we know we can remove the flag stick. We can have somebody attend the flag stick. We can have somebody hold the flag stick up directly above the hole, though. And so we have the person on the far right. It looks like they're attending, but what they actually have is the flag stick out of the hole, but positioned right behind the hole. All of those are acceptable. And in this particular, so the player must decide again before making the stroke. Well, what's removed mean? Having the flag stick removed from the hole from playing the hole, before playing the ball, sorry. Attending the flag stick is basically anybody being within an arm's length of the flag stick, whether or not they are actually touching it. So in all 3 of these pictures, the player is actually having that person attend the flag stick. But if somebody's simply standing within an arm's length of the flag stick, it's going to be also construed as attending it. So we can see first holding the flag stick before the stroke and then remove the flag stick. So we're good with that. So here we have the scenario where somebody is actually simply standing next to it. That's going to also be considered attending. So the player is treated as having authorized the attendance if the player's caddy is holding it, standing right next to the hole, and then the player makes the stroke. Even if the player wasn't aware of it, then the the player still has authorized it. because remember, the player is responsible for the caddy's actions. If the player asks any other person to attend the flag stick and that person does so, the player sees any other person holding the flag stick, like in these three images, then they're going to be considered authorizing the flag stick to be attended. Or if that player sees somebody standing right next to it, they're going to have authorized it. So if you don't want it attended, you better tell that person to get out of the way. Okay, so here we have a situation. The ball strikes the flag stick, no problem. The player's ball in motion hits the flag stick and it was attended. Is there going to be a problem? And it's possible that it could be. So if the player's ball in motion hits a flag stick that the player had decided to have removed, what happens, or attended in this particular case, what happens or depends upon whether this was accidental or deliberate. So if it hits the flag stick or actually hits the person attending the flag stick, was it accidental or was it deliberate? If it was accidental, then there is no penalty and the ball is played as it lies. So what would be accidental? Let's say the person's attending the flag stick and somebody hears, or maybe there's an ambulance or a car crash right next to the property, or somebody flips over their golf cart or yells or something that distracts the person attending the flag stick, then that's going to be accidental. Yet if it's deliberate, as we've already talked about, now we're going to look at Rule 11.2c. So where are we going to play the ball in that particular case? Then 11.2c is going to tell us that the player is going to have to cancel and replay the stroke, must not play the ball as it lies, and must take relief under 11.2c. And that is, in that particular case, is going to play the ball from where he would have thought the ball had come to rest. It's not going to be cancel and replay. It's going to be where the ball would have come to rest. So we're going to look at 11.2c. And what is the penalty? It's going to be the general penalty. What is deliberately deflected or stopped? So for the purposes of this rule, that means the same thing as 11.2a and includes when the player's ball in motion hits a removed flag stick, an attended flag stick, or the person who attended or removed the flag stick. So let's say I have you attend the flag stick for me. You take it out, but then you see after I've hit it, but then you see my ball is been hit way too hard. And so you go and intentionally lay the flag stick down to stop my ball. I'm going to incur the penalty in that regard. And that was deliberate. An attended flag stick, the person deliberately failed to remove from the hole or move out of the way of the ball. Person who attended to remove the flag stick deliberately failed to move themselves away from the path of the ball, so the ball hit them. So what to do if the ball hits the flag stick? We do have an exception, restrictions on deliberately moving the flag stick to affect the ball in motion. So the ball's been already, or the flag stick has been already laid on the green. You now see my ball about to strike it. It doesn't matter if you're my partner, my caddy, whomever. 11.3 is going to allow us to go ahead and deliberately move the flag stick. So now we're to the infamous ball at rest against the flag stick. If a player's ball comes to rest against the flag stick left in the hole, if any part of the ball is in the hole below the surface of the putting green, the ball is treated as being holed, even if not all of it is in the hole. No longer do we have to adjust the position of the flag stick and get the ball to fall into the hole. We simply just look at it. You can see in this particular scenario, nearly half of that ball is below the level of the putting green, so that ball is holed. However, if none of it is below the hole or below the surface of the putting green, it's not holed, must be played as it lies. Well, if it's resting against the flagstick is a movable obstruction. You remove the movable obstruction and the ball falls in the hole. you're not allowed to count it in that particular case. Now what we're going to have to do is we're going to place the ball at the nearest spot where it will come to rest, which is going to be on the lip of the hole. So if the flag stick is removed and the ball moves, then whether it falls into the hole or moves away, again, we're going to be no penalty and we're going to place it on the lip of the hole. If we don't do any of this stuff, there's going to be a general penalty for playing from a wrong place. But if we fail, if we move the flag stick when none of the ball was below the level of the putting green, and we fail to put it on the edge and putt out, now we're going to be disqualified because we didn't complete the hole. Ball overhanging the hole. This is, the good old things. We see it on the tour. It's amazing how many times players on the tour do not understand this or don't even have a clue. They think, well, it's moving. I can't hit a moving ball. Well, that's not true, because under this rule, we're going to see that if a ball is at rest overhanging a hole, what is the waiting time? If any part of the player's ball overhangs the lip of the hole, the player is allowed a reasonable time to reach the hole. So the player, let me go back. So the player hits the putt and it's on its way, and the player gets all excited about it and stays right where it is. And then he starts walking up to the hole. A reasonable time to reach the hole. We're going to allow maybe for a little bit of theatrics, but we're not going to allow a whole lot of time for theatrics. We're going to go ahead and expect the player to take a reasonable time to get to the hole, and then 10 seconds. If after 10 seconds the ball doesn't fall into the hole, well, if it does, okay, he's waiting, counts to 10, and then the ball falls in. Before he gets to 10, he's considered holed out with his previous stroke. But if it doesn't fall into the hole during this waiting time, the ball is going to be treated as at rest. And so in this particular case, even though the Matt Kuchar's of the world can say, that's moving, the fact of the matter is, once you get to 10, it doesn't matter what science tells us. The rules override science and will say the ball is at rest. And so it's treated as rest. If after that 10 seconds the ball falls into the hole before it's played, the player is treated as having holed out with the previous stroke, plus gets a 1-stroke penalty. And so they effectively get the same score as if they'd gone ahead and just tapped it in. Now, notice all of this has been discussing. In most cases, this happens from strokes on the putting green. What happens if it's from 250 yards out? Does the player have to run? What's that reasonable amount of time that the player can wait? Well, if the player is one of 4 players and the other 3 players are not reaching the green in 2, so they have to hit a few more shots, that player's ball is sitting there overhanging the whole time. And so again, the player has reasonable time, given the situation where he was when he hit it, is given a reasonable amount of time to get to the hole, and then 10 seconds. So it could very well be well over 2 minutes, maybe more, that for the player to get to the hole. He doesn't have to stop doing anything else and go straight to the hole. He can go ahead and continue walking towards the hole with the group as they play their way to the hole. All right, so if a ball overhanging the hole is lifted or moved before the 10 seconds, before the waiting time is ended, the ball is treated as having come to rest. So we're saying if a ball overhanging the hole is lifted or moved other than natural forces, so I knock your ball away. Now, your 10 seconds, maybe if that was after 5 seconds, you lose the other 5 seconds. So you're going to place it on the lip of the hole. The waiting time no longer applies to the ball. And now we're going to go back to Rule 9.3. That's natural forces, but we're going to go back to Rule 9 and try to figure out what caused the ball to move. So in match play, if the opponent causes the ball to move, then what's going to happen is the player's ball is going to be treated as being hold. So here we have the Solheim Cup a few years ago, where this is Nelly Korda having putted, and she's on her knees, and the European side, her Nelly's ball comes to rest overhanging the hole, and the European side doesn't wait the 10 seconds, and they went and moved the ball. And so the ruling came down that Nelly's ball was treated as hold. So the European side doesn't get a penalty, but they don't get the benefit of potentially winning the hole because they moved Nelly's ball before it had a chance to play itself out. And you could hear the coach or the captain, European captain, and these two players saying there was no way that ball was going in the hole. And no way or not, it doesn't matter. Nelly is given the benefit of the rules, and they violated the rule, and so Nelly's ball was treated as being hold. However, if it's in stroke play, if a person deliberately lifts or moves the ball before overhanging the hole, before the time is ended, in stroke play, the player who lifted or moved the ball gets the general penalty. Now, generally speaking, in stroke play, if I cause your ball to move and there's no penalty and I put it back, the difference is that ball is not at rest. And when it's not at rest, we now look at a different rule. And so if I intentionally deflect or stop your ball that is in motion, I incur the general penalty. And that's what we're looking at here. So you're going to not get the benefit of it potentially falling in, but I'm going to incur the 2-shot penalty. Now we're going to go to bunkers. Rule 12, we know what bunkers are. It's number 2 on our list. It's the second in the hierarchy of things. So what is a bunker? It's a specially prepared area of sand, often a hollow from which turf and soil was removed. So pretty steep face bunker here. I'd hate to be using my Sand Pro to try to rake that bunker. So, but what are things that are not part of the bunker? Well, the lip, wall, or face. So we see the red arrow pointing toward that is the wall of the bunker. At the edge of the prepared area and consisting of soil, an earthen bunker lip that we see here, grass, stacked turf. We see those frequently over in Europe. We don't see them many here, but sometimes we may. Stacked turf or other artificial materials. They actually have gotten to where instead of doing stacked turf, they will have turf that looks like stacked turf, but it's an artificial material. Another thing that's not a bunker is anything inside the edge of a prepared area, soil. So here we have a mound of soil that is within the confines of this bunker. It is not part of the bunker. It's not part of the, even though it's within the edge. Any growing or attached natural object inside the edge of a prepared area. We could have grass. We could have bushes. We could have a weed. We could have tree within a bunker. Those all are not part of the bunker. So we could also have sand that is spilled over. So here we have maybe the only area where the Sand Pro can enter and exit the bunker. And due to time, the sand has been washed out, maybe due to rain being washed out or the Sand Pro dragging it out with them. Or any other areas of sand on the course that are not inside the edge of a prepared area. So these are not, so this is, it could be down in the sand hills of North Carolina. It could be over near Kohler, where the PGA was, Whistling Straits. It doesn't matter. Areas, it could also be deserts, other natural sandy areas, sometimes often referred to as waste area. Those are not bunkers. Committee may choose to define a prepared area of sand as part of the general area. Um, the USGA, when they use Whistling Straits, they will actually say there are no bunkers at all on the golf course. And so we can't have Dustin Johnson making his mistake in the US Open in that particular scenario, because they declare all areas as sandy areas and they are not bunkers. But they're not going to necessarily be prepared. There won't necessarily be rakes always at all of them. They're going to be considered maybe more waste areas, and you're going to have to play the condition the way it is. Yes, you're going to be able to ground your club. Yes, you're going to be able to take a practice swing, but you may be more inclined to hit play from a bad area because it hasn't been prepared. When a bunker is being repaired, in this particular case, the committee defines the entire bunker as ground under repair. It means the whole thing is now part of the general area. So if somebody hits it in there and wants to hit it out, it's ground under repair, and they can certainly play from ground under repair, but you can take relief from the bunker. No longer was the committee required to define the area as abnormal ground conditions or through the green. And what is sand? Well, we know what sand is, but sand isn't always Ohio's best, that pure white sand. Sand over in the UK is going to be different than sand down in the Caribbean. They use crushed seashells as sand because that's just they're a lot more available. So it can be anything similar. There are places that bunkers are going to be more like dirt, things like that, as well as soil that's mixed in with sand. A ball is in a bunker when it actually touches sand on the ground and inside the edge of the bunker. So in this particular scenario, we clearly see that that ball's in the bunker, and it's inside the edge, or something that's inside the edge of the bunker and rest on the ground where sand normally may be. Maybe we had a bunker wash out due to heavy rain. The sand hasn't gotten put back up, right back up to the dirt area. The dirt still remains part of the bunker. Or a ball that's maybe in or on a loosened pediment. Here we see a ball laying on top of this bunker rake. Could be on a piece of paper, again a paper cup, abnormal course condition, maybe temporary water. Ball sitting in temporary water in a bunker. The ball's in the bunker. Yes, the player has interference from temporary water, but it still lies in the bunker. Or it's on an integral object, maybe a wall or something within it that touches the sand in the bunker. Normally, the ball would be in the sand. When isn't it in the sand? When it's not touching. A ball lies on soil, grass, other growing or attached natural objects. So here we have a ball in a palmetto bush. Inside the edge of the bunker, yeah, but if it doesn't touch any of the sand, the ball's not in the bunker. And you can do a lot of things when the ball's not in the bunker. You know that. So now we have what we often refer to as a beach bunker. A ball is touching the red line as well as the sand. Remember our hierarchy. So a ball touching a penalty area and anything else is always in the penalty area. So here we have a ball that's touching the penalty area and in a sand. It's going to determine that the ball is in the penalty area. So we're always going to look at that. So why this was particularly relevant is if this is the case, the player can go in, can now take swings, hit the sand whether it be in the penalty area or in the bunker, because again, the key is where is the ball at rest? The ball's at rest in the penalty area. Player can touch the ground behind the ball with their club, can take practice swings either in the sand in the penalty area or in the sand and not in the penalty area. So the player can do all of those things because the ball is in the penalty area and not in the bunker. Playing a ball in a bunker applies both during a round and while play is stopped. So we're going to be talking about things there where we're not allowed to do. We know we can move loose impediments now. We know we can move movable obstructions. That includes any reasonable touching or movement of the sand in the bunker that happens to do so. You know, if there is a stick right behind that ball, like this guy's moving, and in so doing, he touches the sand right behind the ball, touches the sand, inadvertently moves a little bit of the sand. If he's doing it to move the loose impediment and what he's doing is reasonable to move the loose impediment, there's certainly no problem to that. So when removing a loose impediment, movable obstruction, sand is often removed as a result, no penalty, even if it happens to improve the conditions affecting the stroke. And if the actions are taken to remove these things were reasonable, absolutely just fine. However, we do have restrictions, as you guys know. Before making a stroke at a ball as in bunker, player must not deliberately touch the sand in the bunker with hand, club, rake, or other objects, specifically for the purpose of testing the condition of the sand to learn information about the next stroke. We're not allowed to touch the sand behind the club or behind the ball, in front of the ball with the club. We're not allowed to make a practice swing. We're also not allowed to, and this is a video you'll see the player taking the club back and touching the sand during the process. You can see how right here, the player hits it. I'm always concerned. I remember I was officiating the round of 64 match at the U.S. Amateur last year, and I suspected there was one of the two players that would get the club very, very close to the sand. That made me really nervous. Now, as a professional teaching and as a player, I'm holding my club at least 2 inches above the sand. I don't want any chance of me inadvertently doing that. This player would be precariously close. And I remember on a particular hole that he hit a bunker shot, and I was in a position, it really looked like he potentially could have done it. And we were watching where the ball rolled out, and I went back to look at it. And before I could get down and look at it, the caddy raked the bunker. And should I have stopped the caddy? Maybe, maybe not. But in that particular case, it turned out not to make a difference. But I was really concerned about that. And so it's something that we as officials, if we're refereeing a match, let's say, or with a group, we need to be paying attention to something like that. We don't need to be looking for trouble, but at the same time, this is a violation of the rules, and it's our responsibility to call it if we observe it. When touching the sand results in the penalty, we have a modification for individuals with disabilities, for those players who are blind. We're not going to look at that. I encourage you to be familiar with Rule 25, though. When does touching the sand not result in a penalty? Except as covered by what we were talking about. One, player does not prohibit the player from touching sand in any other way, such as digging in with our feet. We know we can do that. Smoothing the bunker to care for the course even before we play our stroke. If we go and pick up the rake and it's, let's say, 5 yards from where my ball's located and there are some footprints right there, if all I do is quickly smooth those footprints, as long as I'm not trying to learn anything, if I'm just simply caring for the course, there's no problem. Thirdly, I can put clubs down. I can put my golf bag down. I can put my push cart into the bunker. I can drive the golf cart into the bunker if I want to. Obviously not a good idea, but I can certainly place those things in the bunker. And likewise, if I need to measure, if I touch the sand, no problem. If I'm marking the ball because it's next to somebody else's, no problem. Lifting the ball, replacing the ball, all these things. I can lean on a club. If as long as it's not right behind where my ball is, as long as I'm doing is leaning on it for the purpose of just to steady myself. Maybe I'm on somewhat of a slope and I need to steady myself. I can put a club down and lean on it. And I can also do it, strike the sand in frustration. So I hit a shot and it almost gets out, but rolls back down into a different part of the bunker, and I can strike the sand in anger. I'm not doing anything to test where condition of the sand that's going to tell me anything for my next stroke. Uh, are we allowed to probe in the bunker? Yes. If we believe that maybe there's a bunker liner just under the sand, I'm going to be allowed to probe anywhere, including in a bunker without penalty. Maybe they're tree roots, maybe they're rocks. Uh, there are rocks in bunkers sometimes. Maybe there's a hard pan with a bunker liner underneath it that I need to know about. So as long as I'm, again, testing for that reason, I'm going to be just fine. If I do it for the purpose of is to test, now I'm going to be in violation of this. But the player does get the general penalty if I'm improving the conditions affecting the stroke. All right, so no restrictions. Once I get the ball out of the bunker, there's no restriction to it. I can touch the sand in the bunker without penalty under this rule. So if I happen to come back, or if I hit a shot out of the bunker and it goes into another bunker on the other side of the green, and I can go ahead and rake the bunker that I was in. Why? Because my ball's not in it. Even though I'm in a similar bunker, that's just like I can go into, if there are two bunkers side by side and my ball's in one of the bunkers, I can go into the other bunker and make practice swings because the rule specifically says I cannot test the bunker. And "the" is the key phrase. There is only one bunker, and that's the one in which my ball is at rest. So if I want to go into an adjacent bunker and make some practice swings, I can certainly do so. No restrictions again if the ball comes outside of the bunker, even if I have to play back, drop back within the bunker. I'm playing under stroke and distance. I can go ahead and fix this. Or sand in the bunker on the player's line of play. So here we have a player that plays the ball out backwards. And so now the player goes and creates all these footprints and gets the rakes all of this. And even though that raked area is now on the player's line of play, typically that's going to be conditions affecting the stroke include the line of play. But in this particular case, I'm okay because my ball was in there. It's no longer in there. I'm allowed to repair the bunker. No restrictions. The ball played from the bunker comes back in. So here we have no restrictions after the ball is played out, but we do have some. So, but if the ball played from the bunker comes back into the bunker, the player takes relief by dropping a ball in the bunker, or the player decides not to take relief outside the bunker, we're going to have restrictions that will again come into play. So I'm allowed I can slam my club into the bunker, but if I go up to the new ball, the new position for the ball that's in the bunker, I'm still going to have the same restrictions. I can't touch the ground behind the bunker. I can't rake the line of play for that new position with that ball in the bunker. That's what this means. All right, so if I do any of that stuff in the bunker, I'm going to incur the general penalty under Rule 12.2. There are specific rules for relief of ball in a bunker. If a ball's in a bunker, if we have maybe abnormal course conditions and have interference, we're going to look at Rule 16. If we have interference from a dangerous animal and unplayable ball, we're going to look at specific rules rather than the general. And that's one thing to remember when you talk about the rules of golf. Specific will also always override general. All right, those are bunkers. Now, those are the rules associated with bunkers. It's not to say that it's all circumstances, but these are the things playing out of bunkers. Now we're going to talk about penalty areas. The nice thing about the penalty areas is we all know what they are. So we've got the penalty area number 3 at the top. We realize that that's not an area of water. We as the committee, as we're going to see under the definition, can create penalty areas whether or not water exists. Then on the lower right-hand corner, that's our traditional watery grave. So we know what our options are for a ball in a penalty area. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on these, but there are a couple that I want to emphasize just a little bit. Once again, here we have this beach bunker. We know it's now in a penalty area. And this is where it allows us to do this. The rules changed back in 2019 to allow us, when a ball is in a penalty area, to proceed just as though the ball were in the general area. That is, we can, without penalty, play the ball as it lies under the same rules that apply to a ball in the general area. That is the key phrase. That is what allows us to go ahead, remove loose impediments, ground the club, take practice swings, do the things that we would normally, previous to 2019, have not been allowed to do without penalty. Okay, so now we have the two scenarios. The player may play a ball from outside the penalty area. We can certainly play it from within the penalty area. So here we have a red penalty area. We have 3 options for red penalty. Number 1, under stroke and distance. 2 is back on the line. And number 3 is the lateral 2 club length relief option. Then if you look down in the image in the lower right, here we have a scenario where a player has played from position A to position B. Player has not ever gotten that ball out of the penalty area. What do we do? Many years ago, fortunately, the rule, I think it was going back almost to rule 1992, that prior to this lower right rule coming into effect, what is often referred to as regression, if you played from A to B and you couldn't play it at B, and then you drop back at A and you couldn't play it at A, you had to stop. You were done. You had to walk your way in or drive in because you could not continue playing. Now, fortunately, it allows us to keep playing. So let's think about this. And a player at point A hits it to point B. The player has 3 options. The first is stroke and distance, so that goes back to point A. But then now we have 3 additional options, because the 3 additional options under regression allows us to play a ball proceeding under the options that were available to us for the ball that we hit to point A. So those options are, it's kind of interesting. The teeing area, stroke and distance, is listed as number 4. But if you think about it, we're looking at the image in the top center. Stroke and distance is option 1. Back on the line is option 2. And the 2 club length lateral relief option is number 3. So you can see a player that plays from point A to point B can drop and try to play again from point A, but without dropping, can proceed directly to point options 2, 3, and 4 with just the 1 stroke penalty. This is a great way to save yourself when you're stupid to begin with. All right, so there is an exception, that is relief must be taken from interference by a no play zone in a penalty area. So if a ball's in a penalty area and you have a no balls in a no play zone, you must take relief under the penalty area option. So here we have a ball that's relief for a ball that's not found but in the penalty area. So this is our knowledge or virtual certainty that a ball has come to rest in a penalty area. We have those options again, not just knowledge, but we have the virtual certainty. But once we put a ball in the play, so here we have this player dropping the ball, and we'll learn when we get to Rule 14, a ball is in play as soon as the player has dropped it, as soon as the player has let go of the golf ball. So once the player has put a ball into play under this rule, the original ball is no longer in play. And as we learned last week, if it's not in play, it is a wrong ball. And that player must not play that golf ball, presuming that the players put a ball into play correctly under this rule. And this is even true if the original ball was then found on the course before the end of the 3-minute search time. Remember, we're proceeding under virtual certainty. So the player knows for a fact that or has virtual certainty that the ball went into this penalty area. But let's say it ended up unbeknownst to him and he couldn't see it. It hit a rock and skipped out and comes to rest 6 inches outside the penalty area in a position that he cannot see it. Plays the golf or drops this ball. That ball is now in play because he has virtual certainty. The player cannot go back around and play the original ball, even though it's subsequently found within the 3 minutes laying outside of the penalty area. Hey, I just found your original ball. I think it's playable. Nope, can't do that. There's no relief under other rules for a ball in a penalty area. So a player's ball is in a penalty area. There is no relief if you have interference from an abnormal course condition, such as this fence or that cart path. As long as those things and the ball is in the penalty area, it doesn't matter where these things are located. If the ball is in a penalty area, you are not entitled to relief. So that's true for an embedded ball or an unplayable ball. Player may have to decide that her ball is unplayable, in which case it's not going to be unplayable. She's going to have to proceed under the penalty area rule. Player's only relief option is to take relief under the penalty rule option, Rule 17. So those are the 4 specific parts of the golf course. Now we're going to talk about, finish this up with talking about the general area. So going back to our image, I'm going to take out all of the 4 areas that we've talked about. We don't have the teeing area. We're not talking about penalty areas, bunkers, or the putting green. Everything else that is not shaded with a circle and a slash through it is part of the general area. That includes fairway, rough, sandy area, brush, underbrush, heavily treed areas. It doesn't matter. Anything that is not otherwise specifically defined is part of the general area. And so again, we're talking about the teeing area, so all other teeing areas of the general area. We're talking about the putting green. All other putting greens, real or practice, are parts of the general area. All bunkers and all penalty areas. It's not the bunkers or the penalty areas. It's all bunkers, all penalty areas are not part of the general area. So take all of those things away from the golf course. Everything that's left is now part of the general area. So what is the general area? General area is the area of the course that covers all of the course except those 4 defined areas. So it's easiest to describe the general area of what it isn't. And it's not those things that we've just discussed. It does include, again, all teeing locations on the course other than the teeing area, and all wrong greens. So that covers this. I will open it up if anybody has questions. Let me go and see if there are any questions. So I'm going to go back through. So Carol asked, what do you do for, and she's from Tucson, so bear down, Arizona. What do you do if there is a large mound from a burrowing animal within the bunker directly in front of you, and your ball is not interfering with the, but it's not interfering with stance or swing. If there is no interference, Carol, then you have to play the ball from where it comes to rest. However, if you have interference from that burrowing animal hole or the tracks of the animal going into it, let's say maybe a turtle that goes into it and the track that the turtle makes going in, if you have interference from those things, then you're going to be entitled to relief, but relief is going to be within that bunker. So good question. So let's go to the next question. Warren down in Australia, for marking a ball on the green, if after marking it, I line up the ball without lifting it from the putting green and then the wind moves it, play it from its new spot? No. Warren, in your particular case, in this particular case, if you touch the golf ball to rotate it without it leaving the ground, rotating the ball under the rules is treated as lifting the ball. So putting your fingers on it basically is the equivalent of lifting it. So by touching it, it now owns that spot on the golf course. Good question, though. I'm glad you asked. All right, so Jim DeLongpre. What is the procedure if a ball is holed in the other hole of a double green? Also, what is the other hole? What if the other hole is on the player's line? Okay, actually, Jim, it's interesting you asked that question because while I haven't had that question, and I know that has happened, but especially with 9-hole courses where they have double greens or maybe they have a larger hole and a smaller hole, what is that hole considered? Do you have, is it abnormal? Well, it's obviously abnormal course conditions. So do you, is it on a wrong putting green or in a wrong putting green? And there hasn't really been some clarification, but it's treated as an abnormal course condition. So what you're going to do is you're going to take relief from that hole and you're going to find the nearest point of complete relief, and then you're going to establish your one club length. And then you could drop the ball. If you drop the ball on the putting green, then you could determine relief from the wrong putting green. Or you could do it the other way. You could say the ball is on the wrong putting green starting out, and just so in the wrong putting green is going to be constituted as on the wrong putting green, and by virtue of the fact that you're going to be standing on it. So you could go ahead and take relief. It might be a situation that you want to look at both options before you decide and see if one gives you a different scenario. One could possibly prove to be more advantageous than the other. It's kind of like a ball that's in ground under repair and in temporary water at the same time. Which do you want to take relief from first? Because it may end up in different scenarios depending upon which direction you go, which you choose to do. If the hole is on your line of play, then you're going to be entitled to relief. It's a hole made by a greenskeeper and it's on your line of play, and you're going to be entitled to relief from your line of play. Great question, though. I actually had that happen at Spring Hill, which is one of the golf courses here in the Twin Cities area during the University of Minnesota's Gopher Invitational. We had a player hit it into the hole on an adjacent putting green on the 18th tee, hit it from 18 tee over to the 16th putting green. And so it was fun to deal with that particular scenario as that. Okay, so Fred, I'm glad you made it back from your Caribbean cruise. I hope it wasn't too difficult for you, but I really, people were really impressed the fact that you signed on from a cruise ship. So is a solid clump of sand in a bunker a loose impediment? I would tell you yes, because it's not loose sand. Oh, you're still on the cruise. I'm impressed, Fred. That's awesome. 2 times in a week that to be on a cruise. Tell me where you are now. Where are you, in port somewhere? Or are you out in the ocean somewhere? So anyhow, a solid clump of sand isn't loose sand. So I would tell you that that's a loose impediment. So while you were answering where you are in the cruise ship, so let's go down to let's see. Oh, you just left Jamaica. Okay, well, I hope you're warmer than we are up here. That's all I can say. All right, so Warren, you asked again, as you mentioned, taking back on the line, and it was your second shot that you took this relief with, and bring it back to the teeing area. I need to drop the ball on the line and have the relief area after doing such. After the drop, can it then be teed up rather than played off the ground? The answer is yes. So basically the question is, I happen to go back on the line for whatever reason. I'm oblivious that when I drop the ball, I'm dropping the ball onto my teeing area. The question, Warren, is going to be, where is the ball? Is the ball, even though it's in the relief area and I've taken back on the line relief, if it is back in the teeing area, then yes, I'm going to be able to do whatever I want to with it. However, if I proceed back on the line, then I'm going to have to go back and drop it on the line. If I mess up dropping on the line and don't fulfill that requirement, now I could still be penalized, even though I can pick up the ball and correct and tee it up somewhere else. So it's rather complicated. I wouldn't recommend doing it. So let's see. Warren, you also asked, great questions, Warren. When you begin with less than 13 clubs and add a driver mid-round, does the added club become the longest club in the bag? The answer would be yes, as long as it's longer than the other ones. Yes. So if you add a club, or if you, let's say that you break your original driver that was 45 and a quarter inches, and you've got another driver in your car that's 47 and a half inches, it becomes, and you break that 45 and a quarter and you can exchange it. Yes, that new longest club, that club becomes the new longest club in your bag. Because you're allowed to do that. So let's see what else. That's, I guess it looks like all the schedule, all the questions that we have. So I appreciate it very much. And again, I'll be in touch with my Australian people on the call, because as I come down next year, we're going to be coming down. I don't know the exact dates, but who knows? Maybe I can get together with some of you guys. It would be fun to raise a pint and enjoy your company and get to meet you guys in person and figure out where everybody is. So without any doing, next week we do have, again, it's Rule 3. We're going to be talking about why we play this game. And I'm going to not go away very easily here. I'm going to see if for some reason, oh, wait a minute. Okay. I turned on the optimize for video, and I'm going to hope this works. So I'm going to leave you with this. Let's see if it works. I'm not very hopeful. This is not good. I'm going to have to figure out why this isn't working. Well, everybody go to Google, search greatest game ever played main theme, and listen. And until then, cheers, everybody. See you next week.